Depending on who you ask, Marvel's nocturnal hero Moon Knight is either a mercenary, an emissary of an ancient Egyptian god, an obvious Batman clone, or just an absolute lunatic. Over the years, countless revivals and reinterpretations have given readers reason to think of him in any of those ways and more. As a side effect, Moon Knight's origins and even the core of his character can be tough to figure out. Asking a question as simple as "What's Moon Knight's secret identity?" is complicated enough to make you shake your head. So to help you along, here's the truth about Moon Knight. Moon Knight's real-life namesake. Rather than the usual hero-everyman dichotomy we're used to with Superman and Clark Kent or Spider-Man and Peter Parker, Moon Knight has at least 3 civilian names. There's taxi driver Jake Lockley, the mercenary Mark Spector, and millionaire Stephen Grant. These 3 identities not only speak and act differently, the people in Moon Knight's life choose who they believe is the dominant persona. His girlfriend Marlene, for instance, only ever refers to him as Steven, whether or not he's wearing the mask. Co-creator Doug Moench, on the other hand, cast Moon Knight's dominant persona as Mark Spector, a name he got from an employee at a comic shop that Moench called the best comic shop in Manhattan. At the time, he often used the names of people in his life for new characters, and as he says, one of the guys who worked there was Mark Spector. When the employee asked, "When are you going to name a comic book character after me?" Moench decided to use his name for a new villain he was creating for an issue of Werewolf by Night. With that, Moon Knight got a name, and the real-life Mark Spector got his wish. Moon Knight's villainous roots. Moench and artist Don Perlin first brought Moon Knight to life in 1975's Werewolf by Night number 32. As a mercenary hired by a clandestine group known only as the Committee to capture a werewolf named Jack Russell. No, really, like the adorable terrier. It was the Committee who gave Spector his codename, his costume, and even his silver gauntlets and a truncheon specifically designed to hurt the savage werewolf. By the end of the next issue, Moon Knight showed at least a hint or two of the hero he would become. While he fulfills his contract by capturing Russell and bringing him to the Committee, he also becomes convinced that he's on the wrong side and helps the werewolf to escape. It's not all out of altruism, though. He made sure to keep the Committee's money for himself. Big Bill's breakout. Bill Sienkiewicz is known among fans for having one of the most unique art styles in comics. Over the past 30 years, he's displayed his scratchy, innovative, and almost abstract work on books like New Mutants, Daredevil, Elektra, and even Batman. But he began his comic book career drawing Moon Knight. Sienkiewicz was only 19 years old when he brought a portfolio to the offices of DC Comics, but unfortunately, that was exactly the wrong time, as DC was cutting loose many of the artists who had been working there for years. Still, his talent was evident. So Batman artist Neil Adams, one of Sienkiewicz's artistic influences, called up Jim Shooter and said, "I've got this kid fresh off the street and he draws like me. Is that a problem?" With the common perception that Moon Knight was Marvel's Batman, he fit right in alongside Moench. The first Jewish superhero? Moench told Charlie Houston he made up the first Jewish costumed hero, though he also says he didn't begin with that in mind. After learning that the real-life Mark Spector was Jewish, he reasoned that the fictional version ought to be as well. Whether Moon Knight really is the first Jewish superhero depends on a number of things, including how you define the first Jewish superhero. Ben Grimm predates Moon Knight by a decade, though he wasn't confirmed to be Jewish until a 2002 issue of Fantastic Four. Magneto debuted all the way back in 1963, but his status as a Holocaust survivor wouldn't be revealed until 1981. Similarly, Doc Samson's Jewish heritage wasn't discussed until 1990, well after the character's debut in the pages of Incredible Hulk. So whether or not he was the first, Moon Knight was the first one whose heritage was discussed on the page. Either way, it's a milestone. The Hawkeye connection. Moon Knight has never been much of a team player, but in the late 80s, his status as an up-and-coming fan-favorite character landed him a spot on the West Coast Avengers, and gave him a pretty interesting source for his crime-fighting equipment. In 1987's West Coast Avengers number 23, the LA-based team went back in time to ancient Egypt. Once there, they found worshippers of the moon god Khonshu, the patron deity who brought Mark Spector back from the dead and charged him to fight for justice, under siege. Determined to help the Egyptians defend themselves, Hawkeye designed weapons for them like darts and boomerangs. The issue ends with a cut back to modern times, where we see Mark Spector finding the same weapons his fellow Avenger designed. To date, we don't know if Moon Knight or Khonshu have offered Hawkeye royalties or even just a co-creator credit. If not, maybe Clint Barton should think about retaining the services of Nelson and Murdoch for the inevitable litigation. Movie night? Plans for an adaptation of Moon Knight have seemed to be in the works for years, mostly on the small screen. The name Mark Spector was mentioned on an episode of the short-lived Blade television series, in which Sticky Fingers from the rap group Onyx took over for Wesley Snipes. Subsequently, Marvel Studios partnered with No Equal Entertainment to develop a show based on the hero. And once Netflix launched their Defenders series, rumors started swirling that the Fist of Khonshu would fit right in with the street-level side of the Marvel Universe. Even recent Moon Knight comics have provided an episodic, psychological thriller take on the hero that would seem like a perfect fit for a TV show. But maybe fans have been setting their sights on the small screen when they should have been looking for something bigger. It's not impossible that the hero could appear in one of the unnamed Marvel Studios films coming up after they wrap up Phase 3 with the Infinity War sequel. In fact, Guardians of the Galaxy director James Gunn confirmed in January 2017 that he has an idea for a Moon Knight film that he presented to Marvel. Awesome! Thanks for watching. Click the looper icon to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Plus, check out all this cool stuff we know you'll love too.